In 1967, something incredibly strange happened to a 59-year-old man in Australia. And when I say strange, I mean devastating. It is a mystery that received worldwide attention and changed the course of Australian history. And no one, till this day, knows why or what actually happened. But before I can even begin to explain this story, my name is Raphael. I'm a lawyer by day and a scary storyteller by night. And on this channel, we unravel dark mysteries, we explore true crime, and we delve into the bizarre, the wacky, and the unexplained. So if this piques your curiosity, I want you to summon the like button to the stand so I know that I have your full support. Please also press subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. So, are you ready? Let's get started. On the morning of December 17, 1967, 59-year-old Harold woke up incredibly tired and incredibly exhausted. Now, for more than a year, Harold was working in a job that not only required him to work long nights and long hours, but to also make very, very, very important decisions, often at haste. And these weren't quick and easy decisions. These were literally life and death decisions. Now, Harold, he loved his job, and it wasn't an easy job to get, so he was very proud to have it and he was very proud of himself. But that did not discount the fact that it was very stressful, and he genuinely felt that he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And waking up this morning, it was no different. He was tired, he was exhausted, and he was stressed. But he had something up his sleeve. He was about to leave his house to do his favorite hobby in the entire world, which was to be out in the ocean. Harold loved the water and everything to do with it. He would swim, he would snorkel, he would spearfish. In fact, he didn't just enjoy it, he was really good at it, and he had a dedication to it. In fact, there was this one time when he went spearfishing and he speared this massive coral trout. And instead of going back up to the surface to put the fish on the boat, he unzipped his wetsuit and put the fish inside while it was still bleeding, just so he could keep fishing. And he had the ability to, because his friends would say that he had this incredible power of endurance underwater. So with this excitement, he got up and he started to plan for the day. Now, this day was going to be incredibly busy but fun because it was his day off. And what he was going to do was first meet his friends and then visit Point Nepean and then have a barbecue lunch, and then in the afternoon he was going to go on a spearfishing trip. So off he goes and he meets his friends and they go off to Point Nepean. Now, Point Nepean is essentially this narrow landmass which forms the entrance to Port Phillip Bay, which is a massive bay in the Australian state of Victoria. And they actually went there to see this famous yacht pass through, but once they got there, they could barely see it. So after staying for a short while, they decided to just go and leave for lunch. So everyone jumps in the car and they head to Portsea, which is where they were going to have their barbecue lunch. But then Harold had this idea. He said to the group, "Why don't we all go for a swim?" Harold was hot and he wanted to cool down and he wanted to work himself an appetite before lunch. Now, you have to remember that this was December and this is Australia. So December is our summertime and it gets hot. So Harold's suggestion wasn't totally out of place because everyone else was feeling the heat too. So they take this diversion and they head to Cheviot Beach for a swim at around 12:15 p.m. Now, Cheviot Beach is this incredibly beautiful place, but don't let its beauty fool you because it is notorious for being incredibly dangerous. And this is actually not an uncommon thing in Australia. I would say, obviously with bias, that we have one of the best beaches in the world, but our beaches can be incredibly dangerous. In this case, Cheviot Beach is known for its very strong rip currents coupled with unpredictable waves. For those of you who may not know what a rip current is, it's essentially a very strong and narrow channel of fast-moving water that would literally just pull you out to sea. It is next to impossible to fight against a strong rip. I would know, I've been in one. To survive a rip, you must not only be a very strong swimmer, you also need to do the opposite of what you may think is the right thing to do. And what you need to do is you have to let the current take you out to the sea, and once the current loses its strength, you have to swim parallel to the beach, and then you can swim back to the beach safely. Now, for Cheviot Beach, no one swam there, because not only are there very strong rip currents, there are rocks and reefs which lie immediately off the beach. So if you were caught in a rip, Not only are you worrying about not drowning, you're also worried that as you get dragged out to sea, you are going to be hit and be shredded by sharp rocks and reef. But for Harold, he didn't hesitate. As soon as the group got to the beach, Harold stripped down to his swim trunks and he started to walk to the water. And then he turned around to his friends and said, "I know this beach like the back of my hand." And as soon as he said that, he stepped into the water. At first, his movements were smooth and they were confident, and he swam further and further out. It was almost like he was chasing something unseen. But then, just like that, he was gone. Harold's friends, who'd all refused to go into the water, stared, frozen, waiting for him to resurface. They stared and they waited, they stared and they waited, and they continued to wait. But Harold Holt, the Prime Minister of Australia, had simply vanished, and no one could explain why. By 12:45 p.m, a frantic emergency response was underway. Within minutes, one of the largest search operations in Australian history was mobilised. Hundreds of police officers, divers, helicopters, even the Royal Australian Navy, they combed the waters trying to find any sign of life. But they found nothing. And then days passed and not a single shred of evidence was found. No body, no clothing, no signs of struggle. It was almost like the ocean had swallowed him whole. It was almost like he was never there at all. And that's when the whispers began, because something did not feel right. The moment Harold Holt disappeared, theories erupted like wildfire. After all, Harold Holt was the Prime Minister of Australia, and the fact that he did not have a security team with him, nor any kind of surveillance to maintain his whereabouts and ensure his safety, seemed very bizarre. After all, when you are a leader of a country, extreme security measures are not just put in place to protect the person, but also to protect national security interests and the secrets that that person holds. This, for example, is the reason why in the US, past presidents are given a security detail for the rest of their lives. So with this question mark hanging over everyone's head, some whispered of conspiracies, others of espionage, and others of something even darker. Now, the government's official explanation was simple. Harold Holt had drowned. Now, Cheviot Beach is known for its deadly rip currents, including undercurrents, so even an experienced swimmer like Harold could easily have been caught in one. Initially, some have suggested that he was suffering from a shoulder injury, which may have made it harder for him to fight against the waves. As to the lack of a body being found, some have claimed that he was literally swallowed by the sea, sucked into a hidden cavern beneath the waves. All of this seems very rational, perhaps even obvious. But some claim that it's too rational, perhaps even a bit too obvious. They say that Harold had not drowned at all. What if Harold had planned this all along? Perhaps he disappeared on purpose, slipping away into the shadows to escape the pressures of leadership. Or maybe, just maybe, his fate had been decided for him. The most chilling theory is that the CIA had been watching him for months, tracking his every move. You see, politically, Harold Holt was growing strong ties with China, and this had raised red flags in Washington because during the 1960s, i.e. the Cold War, there was a very tense period of geopolitics. And given Australia's location in the Australian Pacific, the US was very concerned that its key ally, Australia, was fraternising with the quote-unquote enemy. And therefore, many asked the question, did the CIA orchestrate his disappearance? Then there's the rumours of a Chinese submarine. Similarly to the CIA theory, some claim that Holt wasn't just fraternising with the enemy, but he was the enemy. The reason why Harold had been moving towards closer diplomatic ties with China was because he was a spy for China. So instead of the CIA trying to take Harold out, maybe China was trying to get Harold out. In 2005, nearly 4 decades after Harold Holt vanished, an official inquest ruled his death as an accidental drowning. And since then, the case has remained closed. But is that really what happened? Harold Holt's disappearance remains one of the greatest mysteries in Australian history because, till this day, there's still no evidence at all as to what may have happened. Many conclude that it was simply an accidental drowning, but others say, where is the proof? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So I hope you enjoyed today's story, and if you haven't already done so, press like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you can be part of the exclusive club that gets to see my videos as soon as they are uploaded. So thank you so much for your support, and I will see you on the next video.